Morning to the guys who are actually joining from India, in the US, and then the guys from India. Good evening. Um, this is one of those webinars that we are trying to present it to the software companies or the companies who are trying to build some solutions around cutting edge technologies. The whole objective of this presentation is to how we could imbibe the DevOps culture and then containerization for the agility and quality of software product development lifecycle. So before I talk in detail about S28, let me do a very quick introduction about myself. My name is Shravan Siramdas. I'm the Vice President at S28. As part of my role, I manage all the software relationships that we have today with the independent software vendors across the globe. As part of the business unit that I run, we do have about 25 plus software relationships covering tier 1, tier 2, and then tier 3 software companies in terms of the revenues. We also tend to work with the startup companies who are actually come with a single line idea and then engage us in their endeavor in terms of building a marketable enterprise ready product to the market. So let me also take a quick 1 minute to talk about S28 as a company. So S28 as a company, we started about 12 years ago, the journey. We are based out of the heart of the Silicon Valley, based out of Bay Area, Sunnyvale. We've been in business for about 12 years. We started off, our core founders, both Prakash Balabel and Kini, they come with about 25 plus years of industry experience. Most of their life, they worked with companies like Oracle, where they were part of trying to build the next generation enterprise solutions, being part of the executive roles at Oracle. We are about a 500 people employee company, and then we are growing very rapidly. We come with and we are also had the opportunity working with about 50 plus Fortune 500 companies while we engaging in terms of developing solutions for the software companies. Predominantly, we focus on three verticals outside of software, independent software vendors. We work with healthcare verticals. There are several companies that we work with and then helping them to build their solutions, which they could build it as intellectual property and then also monetize it and then sell it to the rest of the healthcare companies in the world. And we're also deep into financial services business. We also had the opportunity and working with currently as we speak with several of the banking and financial sector companies across the globe. We have about 5 of the best banks, top 50 banks in the world as our customer list. And then we also work with the retail and e-commerce, helping them to build the best-in-class solutions outside of the ISV. So when it comes to the focus, obviously, independent software vendors, the relationships that we built is something about over and above 50% of our revenues. And then we designed our entire business model around the work that we do in research and development and helping with software companies building their solutions, which they would want to bring it to the table. So with that quick introduction, I would also take some time to introduce my co-panelist today. His name is Sachit Kadamba. Sachit comes with about 12 years of strong product development experience. He is the guy who actually helped with several of our software relationships today, helping them designing the one-line idea into a detailed architecture and then design and then walking the rope along the way to all the way until up to commercialization of a given product. So his skills spread across outside of pure play software development. He comes with a very specialized skill in terms of building the mobile applications across the platforms. To date, probably you might have built about 20 plus mobile applications which are actively marketed and then are used in the market space. So in his prior life, he had the opportunity to build a similar research and development practice for Infosys before joining S3. And he is obviously one of our chief architects who actually would get involved every time we come into a customer situation in terms of trying to address a business, an idea that could potentially address a business challenge. With that quick introduction, I would hand off the baton to Sachit. Sachit, are you there?
Yeah, hi Shravan. Thank you, Shravan, for the introduction. Hi everyone, good morning, good evening. Now let me start with the presentation. As we have seen, software development has evolved a lot in recent years, from waterfall model to agile to the recent adoption of DevOps. By applying DevOps principle with agile, we can drastically cut down on release cycles and at the same time not compromising on quality factors. If we talk about agile, it has cyclic approach and has advantages like more receptive to your customer base, constant feature evaluation resulting in increased business value of the applications. Overall, we move towards perfection with every iteration. But as you know, with all this agility comes various challenge across operation and development team. The key challenge areas would be like how to release new production, how to release new build to production quickly, or you may find issues while code integration or continuous integration across team members, or there will be challenges in continuous testing and lot many. To make all these work effectively and leverage full potential of agile, we have DevOps culture for our rescue and other technologies like Docker, Jenkins. And in next 30 odd minutes, I'll be talking more around the same. If you see here, in the past, development lifecycle used to be practicing waterfall model for project management, and application features were tightly coupled into one single monolithic application which were deployed into physical servers. Then slowly people started moving towards agile, which allowed us to develop application on feature basis, incorporating customer feedback. At the same time, there were improvements in virtualization technologies, which made it possible to run application on VM, which has advantages like we can spin up new servers when we have to serve more requests, or we can maintain different environments by creating new VMs. So with all these, now the trend is moving towards container technologies like Docker, with which application development is adapting to microservice based architecture. With microservice based architecture, it makes it easy to develop, deploy, scale, and maintain an application. Also, this architecture mingles well with the DevOps tools to create environments on the fly and make deployments with an automated workflow. Next, we will see what is DevOps and how it is going to help us. So, what is DevOps? Is it a technology? Is it some kind of tool or development architecture? Is it about making someone or some team responsible for all these build activities? Answer is we cannot say DevOps is one particular thing. DevOps is set of best practices which can be unique for each team and organization. It is all about making use of best of everything which help us to achieve the goal. In general, we can say DevOps is combination of culture, best practices, and tools that increases an organization's ability to deliver application at high velocity with quality. Why we need to practice DevOps in our team? Or what are the advantages having DevOps? DevOps culture promotes better working relationship within an organization or a team. All team members, it could be your business owners or developers or operation team or QA, they can collaborate together and make use of best practices and tools that provides rapid, reliable software delivery. DevOps streamlines the development, build, and deployment process using CI/CD pipeline, which saves time for each one involved in the product development and delivery. Developers can focus on feature development instead of entangling themselves with build and deployment related issues. CI workflow encourages developers to check in and merge the code more frequently with a central repository. We can have automated test which we can run on every check-in, making sure that developer gets the feedback about his check-in, whether he has broken any of the features or whether he has introduced any regression issue because of his code. This helps to identify and solve any issue at development stage rather than allowing it to propagate to next stage. As you know, fixing bug at development stage is easy and time saving than in later stage. Since everything is automated in DevOps, it increases the frequency of product releases. Automating everything makes repeatable, predictable process, whether it could be during your code integration or creating builds or doing production deployments, which in turn helps to create more mature processes and practices over the time. With more frequent builds, we can collect customer feedback quickly and adapt to them in the next release. Since we have DevOps in practice, we have the capability to release new features or adapt to changing market trends with the help which will help us to stay ahead in the competition. Overall, we can say DevOps eliminates the time and resource constraint of an application development and maintenance while ensuring the quality, stability, and continuous improvement of the product. Here is a typical DevOps workflow. It starts with the developer who will be checking in the code more frequently to a Git or any other repository. Once code is checked in, we can trigger automated build again, which will again we can run automated test on that, making sure he has not broken any feature. This build or automated test can be triggered on every check-in, or it can be scheduled on a particular time interval depending on your project and build requirements. Once build passes through all the tests, then we can deploy into next level, next staging servers or QA servers where further testing or evaluation can be done. Or it could be deployed to production server once it passes through all the required tests. We can create deployment scripts which can take stable builds and deploy to staging servers or a production server. Once it is deployed, we can collect and measure the application metrics, also collect user feedback, and make sure that those are addressed in the next build. For automation testing, we can use Selenium for web application or APM for mobile application testing. Also, we can run unit test, making sure code is stable at any given point of time. We can also have branching strategies in our version control software, making sure we have a stable code at one particular branch which can be deployed to a production server at any point of time. Now let's discuss about how the life will be without DevOps, or what are the problems a team might face without following DevOps practice. You may have problems like your team may be finding it difficult to uh, solve a problem because it is not reproducible in local environment, or you may run into a situation where you have to roll back your production deployment, resulting in downtime. Also, rollback may be a complicated process, or you have to do some dry runs, making sure that you have all the scripts ready. Your team may not be able to catch certain bugs because you are not maintaining sufficient testing environment, resulting in either slow QA process or production issues because you are not able to catch some bugs in QA stage, or you may be getting some unexpected issues when you release new builds to production. Your developers might have broken some other features while trying to implement a new one. Since releasing a new build is a risky process, you may fall behind in the competition due to your inability to release new builds quickly. Overall, we can say it is an unpleasant software development journey with lot of issues and fear of failures. Here you can see a typical use case of difficulties or issues faced by a team. Usually, this occurs when you move one build from one environment to another, usually to a QA or UAT, or when you do production deployment. For example, if an issue comes in production, your developer will say it is because of environment issue, but your operation guy will say everything is deployed as per deployment script. Hence, here precious time is wasted identifying the root cause of the issue. Similarly, you might find issues in developer and QA coordination, where developer is not able to reproduce the issue. All these kind of issues can be eliminated by practicing DevOps, which brings teams together and automate the repeatable tasks as much as possible, saving time and money for you. So what DevOps include? It includes automated CI/CD pipeline, automated testing, automated application deployment, treating infrastructure as code, tools that versions your application code, leveraging container services like Docker. The key terminology which you hear when you hear about DevOps is CI and CD. So what is CI or continuous integration? Continuous integration is a development practice that requires your developers to integrate the code into a shared repository several times a day. Each check-in is then verified by an automated build, allowing team to detect problems early in the development cycle. Ideally, it encourages to write unit tests for the developer so that each module can be tested independently. So once developer checks in the code, so we can run all the tests, making sure that he has not broken any other functionality while trying to implement his functionality or while trying to fix some issue. Another term you hear most is CD. Actually, CD has two meaning. Either it could be continuous delivery or continuous deployment. Now, what is continuous delivery? Continuous delivery is a discipline where your goal is to build software such that it can be released to production at any time. We achieve continuous delivery by automating the delivery flow from development to production. Now, what is continuous deployment? Continuous deployment is a rare practice of auto-releasing and installing every good build to production. Continuous deployment is a unique and extreme form of continuous delivery where every change that passes through automated test is automatically deployed into production. Now let's see how DevOps and Agile mingle together. As you know, Agile engages in short iterative sprints, incrementally developing and expanding the functionality. Project implementation will be smooth, everyone will see the progress, there will be provision to collect the user feedback. Theoretically, this all looks good, but practically, overhead of fast delivery and deployment get transferred to developer and operation guys. Here, DevOps comes to our rescue to execute the plan as expected without overburning any resource or team. DevOps helps to achieve the goal of Agile with time and quality seamlessly without burdening anyone. So DevOps is a continuous process which goes in parallel with Agile principles and makes sure we have continuous development, deployment, and release cycle. Now let's come to Docker. So what is Docker? Docker is a software platform that allows us to build, test, and deploy application quickly. Docker packages software into units called containers that has everything the software need to run, including libraries, system tools, code, and runtime. Using Docker, you can quickly deploy and scale application into any environment. Here you are seeing two scenarios. On the left, we have multiple apps running on multiple VMs, where in the right side, we have single Docker machine, which is running multiple application. Docker layer will make sure each app is isolated from each other, even though they run on the same machine. Whereas in VM, to achieve the same, we have to create new full-fledged operating system consuming additional resources. Each Docker container will have its own sandbox environment, libraries, runtime, which won't be affected by host system or any other container apps. But in VM, we don't have flexibility. If we have to run multiple applications, then we have to spin up multiple VMs, which will be costly process. So how Docker helps in DevOps? The same container that a developer builds and tests on his laptop can be run, scaled, and deployed in production, which could be on a VM or on public cloud or on any other server. Using containers, everything required to make a piece of software run is packaged into isolated containers. Unlike VM, container do not bundle full operating system. It bundles only required libraries and settings to make the software work. This makes for efficient, lightweight, self-contained system and guarantees that software will always run the same regardless of where it is deployed. This capability accelerates development, testing, and build times along with increasing productivity and reducing cost. Docker helps to manage deployable build like source code, which can be version controlled. It has advantages like we can roll back to any previous version with a click of a button or like using a script, which can be automated. Since we can manage everything using script related to environment setup and deployment, it mitigates the risk of manual errors. We need not maintain README or deployment script, deployment guide, which has to be manually performed during each environment setup, like QA or production setup. With Docker and DevOps, new features and bug fixes reaches to customer quickly without any surprises or much downtime. Hence, Docker significantly improves the speed and reliability of continuous integration and continuous deployment system. Now let's see how Docker helps for developer. One thing is it improves developers' productivity. As a developer, you can run multiple versions of different tools or software in your system. You need not go to system admin or operation guy to make the system setup for your installing new software or tool. You can do self-service using thousands of pre-built Docker images available in Docker Hub. If your team needs specific customized Docker image, then either you can extend the existing image or you can create your own from the scratch. Once images are created, you can distribute among the team members. In this way, Docker saves the time and makes sure that every team member is having the same production-like environment in his local machine. Second thing is Docker helps in modularizing the application using microservice architecture. Using Docker, we can put each service in different container. In this way, we can have modular application which has advantages like deploy only required images rather than entire application. Or we can have a modular code structure which will be easy to maintain. Also, it helps in troubleshooting specific issues more quickly as we are maintaining identical production like environment in other either in QA or in local system. Another way is like it saves time which is required for preparation for the production deployment. So we at Estivate practice DevOps, constantly adapting to changing trends and tools. How we do it is by following continuous integration and testing, continuous delivery and deployment, collecting user feedback, measuring the application metrics, thereby making sure our customer get best-in-class development experience. Thank you. Now let's move into questions. So we have a question here. How Docker helps in rolling back production deployment? Like if you have to roll back production deployment, how we can do it? With Docker, we have everything required to run a software into a single container that can be version controlled. So we can maintain different version of a container either in your own repository or you can use Docker Hub. So you have a package or a software which is ready to deploy. So let's assume you are doing a production deployment and it is not working as expected. Then you can easily roll back because you have a container which is stateless and you can roll back to the previous one which is already available in your repository. So any more questions? There is one more question which is like how to incorporate DevOps in our mobile application development. So in mobile application, we can have tools like Fastlane, which helps in iOS and Android application. Like it helps in deploying into either test flight or hockey, where you can do the UAT. And also we can, one thing is like the developer has to make sure that he writes the unit test so that our code can be so that we can run the unit test, which we can configure it in a server so that whenever a developer checks in, we run the automated test. Also we can have, if we have to do the functional testing, we can have APM with which we can deploy with which we can write the test cases and make sure that whenever a developer checks in the code to a Git or any other version control, that that executes the functional testing and make sure that we have a stable build. And also we can use exit test, or we can have a Xcode server, and we can make use of Jenkins, which will trigger the build, say every day. Let's assume um, your customer is waiting for a build every end of the day. Then we can have a Jenkins server, which is again an open source tool with which we can automate the process of deploying a build to either hockey or in Apple store or any other where your customer is looking for your build. We got one more question. It is about how Docker helps in scaling the application with respect to VM. So in Docker, we have something called Docker Swarm, or we have one more tool or technology from Google called Kubernetes, where we can define the rules. We can say like how many containers we need, or to how many containers the application or the containers can multiply if there is increase in the load. We can with the if it is a VM, then the full operating system along with your application has to be multiplied. But in Docker, in the same machine where your Docker is running, it can run multiple containers. Whereas in VM, the same to achieve the same thing. You have to run multiple VMs where the operating system is like there is a overhead of running the operating system. But in Docker, since it is a lightweight, it contains only the required things for the application to run. So it doesn't need, it uses your host operating system kernel or other things required to run. So it doesn't, it is very lightweight. So with Docker Swarm and Kubernetes, we can make sure that your application is scaling as per demand. So there is one more question, which is like an interesting question, where it says like, so they have a project where developers push the code to Amazon EC2 instance every week using WinSAP, so that their customer get to test the application. So how to incorporate DevOps in their team? So one thing is you have to make sure you are using any version control. So I recommend Git there because it offers good branching strategies. And so either, see, one thing is you have to make sure that you are using Git, and another is you have to make sure that you have a stable code in any branch. So for that, either you can have some automated test, or if you are not able to invest for automated test, you can have either manual testing, or you can make sure that some code review is done, and you are maintaining a branch which is having the latest and greatest code which comes after your testing. The testing can be automated, or it can be a manual testing, or the code can be coming out of some code review. But we have to make sure that we have a branch that always contains the code which can be deployed into the server. Then now, like, we have to deploy into EC2. So for that we can use Jenkins server. So Jenkins server is an, again, as I said, open source, and it's we can install it on a Linux server, so it all comes with free of cost. So there we can configure it such a way that it pulls the code from your Git, and it, again, we can write, we can make use of scp command or ssh and deploy the code to AWS, or we can, there will be SDKs or command line tools from AWS also, which helps to connect to their system and publish the code. So in this way, I think in your team, with simple way like using Git, Jenkins, and making sure that you have a proper branch where a code is always there, which can be deployed. You can have a DevOps you can implement DevOps. Later you can have some you can improve it by adding some more script which can be automated, removing any manual process which you have. If there are no more questions, then I think we have reached the end of this webinar.
Okay, thanks for that, Sachit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Shravan, I can hear you.
Yeah, many thanks. It was a nice presentation. To all the attendees, many thanks for taking out time to join this webinar. As we move forward, we will be lining up similar webinars in the days to come. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you could visit our website at www.sga.com, and then you can also drop an email to sales@sga.com, so that we could pick up the thread and then get into a dialogue with you to see and then address how we could help to address any of your software development challenges, and then bringing in DevOps as a method to get the product out as per the schedule that you might have defined as part of your roadmap for the product engineering and release. Many thanks for all of you for taking time to join again, and then we look forward to engaging with you guys in days to come. Thank you.